Welcome to My Media Chops. Code Geass's popularity has had a bit of a resurgence over the years with the release of the new films and now with the announcement of Genesis RE Code and Zia the Recapture. This resurgence of popularity has led to a series of repeatedly asked questions about Code Geass. What are the films? Do I need to watch Akito the Exiled? Are the picture dramas important? Where can I watch Code Geass? What's the watch order for any of the anime? And plenty of others as well. If you're someone who has asked these questions or has other questions on the Code Geass universe, then this video is for you. I'm going to go over every major anime in the Code Geass universe. We're talking OVAs, picture dramas, films, you name it. And by the end of this video, you will learn the details of each anime, if you need to watch it, where you can watch it, and finally how to watch it in the correct order. When I use the term need, I mean two things. Do you need to watch this to fully understand the original story of R1 and R2? Or do you need to watch this as a prerequisite to consume other Code Geass content? If you are new to Code Geass or have been a fan for years, this video will be helpful to you regardless. However, since most people watching this will be new fans, I'm not going to spoil anything major in this video. Rather, just go through each anime and give you a brief synopsis of it. I understand that most people have specific questions on certain anime in the Code Geass universe, so this guide will include timestamps on every topic covered in the video. I do recommend that you watch the whole video from beginning to the end, but that's up to you. I'm going to first start with everything that's part of the original timeline, followed by the OVA spin-offs, and then conclude with the alternative universe. Now that all tasks have been cleared, let's get started. Let's begin our dive into the original timeline where it all began, with the original anime. Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion aired in 2006, and the sequel, R2, in 2008. By the way, this is a good time to mention a side note. If you go on forums that discuss Code Geass, doesn't matter which site, you'll notice that people use the terms R1 and R3. Since Lelouch of the Rebellion Season 2 was called R2, people then started dubbing the first season R1 and a possible sequel to R2 as R3. But I hate to bring this up, but R1 and R3 are non-official titles used in Code Geass. We made it up, like the Boogeyman. Despite this though, I am going to refer to Season 1 as R1 because it's convenient and much faster to say. I just wanted to bring that up if people are wondering about what does R1, R2, and R3 mean. Now let's get back to Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion. The story is about Lelouch, a Britannian youth who has three main goals: destroy Britannia, seek vengeance against the one who killed his mother, and create a world where he and Nunnally can live in peace. The first main question is, do you need to watch this? The answer is obvious. Of course you do. This is the essence of Code Geass. Every single content was based on this series. If you wanted to get into Code Geass, then you need to start here. I often see people ask after watching Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion, R1 and R2 if they should watch anything else, or where do I go from here? Well, that depends on your answer to these questions. Did you like Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion, R1 and R2? Do you not have any questions about the plot that could be explained in some of the new content? Were you satisfied with the story? If you said yes to any of these questions, then you probably do not need to watch anything else, because either you hate Code Geass and probably should stop here, or you're satisfied with the story, which is fine because it is a complete story. And I will say that the other content, while it does enhance the original series and provide new things that you might find interesting, it's superfluous. It is not required to watch if you were satisfied with the plot of R1 and R2. If you did enjoy Code Geass, R1 and R2, and want to know where to go next, then I would recommend moving on to either Akito the Exiled, the picture dramas, or to the new recap films and Lelouch of the Resurrection. Okay, next question. Where can I watch Code Geass, Lelouch of the Rebellion? Currently in the US, it's streaming on Hulu, Netflix, and it's free on Funimation with ads for both language options, at least for now until Funimation changes anything. If you want to own Code Geass, then you can buy it on Blu-ray with three options. Either get each season separately, or you get the collection with both of them in one package, or you can get the collector's edition that has the R1 and R2 together and also a bunch of extras. Also, I mentioned Blu-ray because if you want to own the series, buying it on DVD of R1 and R2 from Funimation is a waste of money since it only includes the episodes with no special features. If you do not have access to Blu-ray and need to own Code Geass on DVD, then I would recommend you purchase the Bandai release of Code Geass. This version has even more features than Funimation's Blu-ray release. However, this version is out of print, so finding it can be a challenge, although lately I've had no issues finding it on sites like Amazon. I recently reviewed Funimation's Code Geass Blu-ray collection and compared it to Bandai's DVDs in an article. I will leave it in the description below. Done with the original series, let's move on to the picture dramas. Picture dramas are episodes where each one is a series of images of audio in the background. Each episode is like a clip show, featuring standard animation for the images. Code Geass has many picture dramas that either take place before or after an episode in R1 or R2. For each one, it's labeled with a number, with a decimal point, and then number afterwards. So for example, 9.75 means it takes place after episode 9, or 0. whatever means it takes place before episode 1. In addition to the picture dramas that take place before and after a given episode, there are also standalone ones that tell a separate story from the main show that take place in either R1 or R2. The question is, do you need to watch these? And honestly, no, because nothing in the picture dramas is required to read or watch other Code Geass content, and most of the content in the picture dramas for both R1 and R2 is mostly fan service and filler. There is some plot related stuff, but most of it's explained in R2 in the case of the R1 picture dramas, and even the R2 picture dramas, a lot of it is stuff you could have figured out on your own, or things that only enhance the original story, but are not required to fully understand it. I will say that there are a couple picture dramas that do provide vital information about the story, which is why I kind of wish they were in the original series and not as a picture drama. To determine if you should watch the picture dramas, it all comes down to the following. If you're interested in how certain characters met, what certain characters were doing, and enjoy some fan service, you should definitely check them out. I happen to enjoy the R1 picture dramas more than the R2. That could just be because they were dubbed in English, where the R2 ones were not. Where can you watch the picture dramas? You can watch the majority of the R1 and R2 picture dramas from Funimation's Code Geass Blu-ray collection. For the remaining picture dramas not released in the US, you can watch them on an unlicensed site that has anime, YouTube, or you can read a synopsis of each one on the Wikipedia page for Code Geass. If you're kind of just interested on a casual level of what happened, it's probably better if you just read it to begin with. Let's move on now to the audio dramas for Code Geass Lelouch Other Rebellion. The audio dramas are not technically anime, but it's close enough, so I figured I would include it with the rest of the anime for Code Geass. They're just like picture dramas, minus the picture. They follow the same format as the picture drama, where the events in the audio dramas also happen before or after a given episode. On a personal note, I enjoy the audio dramas more. You can tell the voice actors had such a fun time making them, especially the dub voices. Most of the content is even less focused on the plot, so you can skip them. If you are a completionist though, I would give it a listen. If you were curious to know how the whole conversation between Lelouch and Suzaku went before he said he was going to destroy Britannia in the first episode, you might find this interesting. Or how Millie met Lelouch. But if you don't care about that stuff, then these won't be that valuable to you. I will say it's a lot of fun that you get a chance to watch the anime and then check out the audio/picture drama that were made for that given episode. It completely changes the whole experience, and for new fans, this might be a fun way to experience the show for the first time. Now, where the audio dramas for R1 might have had silly stories that at least somewhat related to the plot, R2s tend to go into Fantasyland. They also don't really relate to each episode, rather they're separate stories altogether. So the R2 dramas compared to the R1 are even less necessary to listen to. Also, while the majority of the audio dramas are fictional stories, there are some that do explain things in the plot in the same way as the other picture dramas and audio dramas do. Now the next question is, where can you listen to them? The audio dramas for R1 are a pain in the butt to find for no reason. Basically, there was a special edition collection set for Code Geass Lelouch Other Rebellion R1. It was released by Bandai and contained 3 boxes. In this collection, there were audio CDs that contained the dramas. 3 discs, I believe. When Bandai Entertainment went under in 2012, Funimation rescued Code Geass. But here's the thing though, Why did they not get the audio dramas? They could have burned them on a separate disc and given it to us in a Blu-ray collection. Many DVDs for other animes will give you the soundtrack as part of the DVD collection. They could have done the same thing for the audio dramas. They could have also just made a digital song file to download, like an MP3 or something, and put on Spotify. There were so many options to give us the audio dramas, yet Funimation didn't do any of those things. Instead, we get stuff like the Extra Flash Baba Theater Redux, which was from the original DVDs, but not the audio dramas. And that thing I mentioned before, the Baba Theater Redux, is a lazy attempt at picture dramas and humor, and they're just awful. I watched it, and I love Code Geass, but I gotta be honest with you, that thing was just terrible. The audio dramas, by contrast, are interesting, hilarious, took effort to make, and actually explain parts of the plot, but we can't get that for some reason. So what now? Well, if you search hard enough on sites like eBay, you can still find the audio CDs despite it being out of print. Like the picture dramas, you can find the synopsis online, and you can find the audio dramas on YouTube at the moment. Now, the R2 picture dramas were never released to the West, and it's hard to find it officially subbed because, well, it wasn't. On eBay, you can purchase the individual audio drama episodes for R2, but it did seem a little dodgy and overpriced. You're better off searching for translations for the dramas, which is what I did for R2. And I believe those are always accompanied by a video on YouTube that does have the audio drama, but it's Japanese, dubbed with no subtitles. Let's move right along now to the recap films. I'm talking about the ones that came out in 2008 and 2009, not the new ones that came out from 2017 to 2018. I will get to those later. Many times studios will create films to summarize a series to make it easier for an audience to come back and watch it or experience it for the first time. They did this for Code Geass for both R1 and R2. R1 not only had a recap film, but it also had 2 recap episodes, 8.5 and 17.5. 8.5 is everything up to episode 8, and 17 follows the same logic. Each film is under 2 hours long and goes through all the main events of Code Geass, Lelouch, Other Rebellion, R1 and R2, respectively. Each one starts near to the end of the series and shows the audience how we got there, which is a nice touch. Part of the film uses montages and narration, which makes the film seem more like reliving a memory than actually experiencing the film in real time. Which makes sense because I believe the intention of this film was you were supposed to watch it after the original anime, not before. You only need to watch the ending of the recap film for R2 because it answers a very important question that fans have been wondering for a long time. I'm not going to say any more, but if you watch Code Geass, Lelouch, Other Rebellion, you know what I'm talking about. These films were made by Bandai Entertainment, so both are out of print. Where can you watch the films? Even though the films are out of print, you can find the Blu-ray version online. But there are 2 problems with those versions. They are overpriced and do not include subtitles. So you're going to have to find out some dodgy site that shows the anime. The good news is, beyond the one part in the second film, which is the ending, there's no reason to watch these films as they don't show you anything new, and it's a mere recap of the original series. Because these films are under 2 hours, they do so much compression of the original story and cut things out that you're not really getting the full experience by watching it. So it's not really worth your time. Again, the only reason why you watch it is because of that last part of the second recap film. Let's wrap up the original timeline by talking about Nunnally in Wonderland. This OVA is a parody on Alice in Wonderland done in the Code Geass setting with the characters from the show. The style borrows elements from visual novels, picture dramas, and standard animation you would see in a normal anime. The story itself has nothing to do with the major plot of Code Geass, so you can skip it altogether. As a OVA itself, I was not a big fan of it. It had too much fan service, and in general, I never really liked the story of Alice in Wonderland. Only hardcore fans of Code Geass should watch this. Everyone else, I'm not sure if it's really for them. This OVA was never released in the US, but you can buy the DVD or Blu-ray from Japan with English subtitles. Anyways, since I've now gone through everything in the original timeline, here's the watch order. First, you watch R1, then all the picture dramas that either take place before or after episodes in R1, then do the same with the audio dramas. This way you'll get a complete picture of everything that happened in R1. When you finish that, then watch the remaining picture dramas that take place in R1 but are standalone stories. After R1, you then start, R2. After you finish R2, you then do the repeat of R1, but this time you watch the R2 picture dramas, and then if you want to, you can listen to the audio dramas, which again were not subbed, and most of them are fictional stories that clearly did not happen in the original series, so it's up to you if you want to listen to them. After that, you then watch the remaining standalone picture dramas for R2. Then watch Nunnally and Wonderland. The reason why you watch this now is because the OVA references characters in R1 and R2, so to avoid confusion and possibly spoilers, it's best to watch this after R2, which I believe is the intended order. You then wrap up the original timeline by watching the recap films and episodes. Why at the end? Well, maybe you might need a refresher. After all, watching the films right after R1 and R2 would make no sense. I mean, you just saw the thing. Maybe check these out a couple months later after watching the original series. But now that we've gone through the original timeline, let's move on to the OVA spin-offs. Our first one is Akito the Exiled, which came out in 2012 and is part of a 5 OVA series. It tells the story of Layla, the commander of the W0 unit. Her unit is helping the EU forces fight against the Euro-Britannians. Those are people in Europe who support Britannia. The story takes place between R1 and R2. I'm not going to discuss details here about this OVA. I've already done so in an article that I will include in the description of this video, and probably in the future I'll make some videos covering Akito the Exiled as well. Instead, I'm going to answer the question of, do you need to watch Akito the Exiled? The answer is this: it's only mandatory if you intend to read other Code Geass manga or play the mobile game Genesis RE Code, because both of these will reference and possibly spoil the anime. I know for sure the manga does. Obviously, the game hasn't come out yet, so I can't confirm that it does. If you're going through the original series / alternative universe and just want to watch the essential parts of Code Geass, then the answer is no. Akito only expands on the lore of Geass, but the majority of it has nothing to do with R1 and R2 directly. There are some cameos of characters from the original series, and there's even some explanations of things that you might find interesting, but you can probably put those pieces together yourself without the OVA. On a personal note, I would recommend it if you enjoyed the Code Geass universe and want more after watching R1 and R2. The next question, where can you watch it? You have two options: either stream it on Funimation, which is free to watch subbed and dub requires a subscription, or you can purchase on DVD / Blu-ray with both languages included. But much like the DVDs for Lelouch of the Rebellion, you're better off with the Blu-ray since it includes more special features. I would recommend getting the version that comes with both Blu-ray and DVD options. That way you can have the DVD option and not miss out on the special features that come from the Blu-ray version. Although I will say with Akito the Exiled, you don't get much to begin with. Which is more than I can say about the other side story OVA, Oz of the Reflection. Basically, there are two parts to Oz, O1 and O2. O1 takes place between R1 and R2, while O2 takes place concurrently with R2. The picture drama in question is actually from O1. Now, one thing I want to make clear before continuing is that both Akito the Exiled and Oz of the Reflection are canon in the original timeline. I'm discussing them separately since they are side stories and do not directly relate to the original series. The main story is about two characters, Orphis, a terrorist, and Aldrin, a soldier in the Britannian military fighting in the Glinda Knights, and their journey between and after the events of the Black Rebellion. The manga has many references to the Wizard of Oz and the names and groups of people. For example, the Glinda Knights. Now, I cannot find a translation for this picture drama, meaning subtitles, but I did find it raw online. Just from watching it as is, and from what I remember of the manga, I can confidently say that you do not need to watch this picture drama if you want to experience Oz of the Reflection, or just in general. If you're curious about Oz, just read the manga. Well, at least O1, since that has the translations online. O2, not so much. I have found one with the French translation, which is no help to me, but if you speak French and read French, it would be helpful to you. Now, if you want to watch the picture drama for Oz the Reflection or Akito the Exiled, or both, here's the chronological order. First watch R1, then Oz the Reflection, O1 picture drama, then Akito the Exiled OVAs 1 through 5, and if you can find them, the picture dramas for Akito the Exiled. Yes, it has picture dramas too. And no, they didn't release it in the Blu-ray collection. Why? I don't know. And finally, you watch R2, and if you can find a translation of O2, you can read that afterwards. Now let's move on to the alternative universe. Now originally I used to say the alternative film universe, But since we're now getting an anime series in that universe, it's no longer just films, and now it's become something bigger. What am I talking about? So from 2017 to 2018, Sunrise made 3 recap films that summarized R1 and R2. But they did more than that. They also removed certain scenes, added new scenes, and changed many story elements. And all of this was done to create a different universe than the original anime. I'm not going to discuss why they did this or what those changes were. That's for another video. After 3 recap films, we then got the latest film, Lelouch of the Resurrection. And most recently, Zia the Recapture was announced last December, which is the first anime series to take place after Lelouch of the Resurrection. The question is, do you need to watch these films? And the answer is no, because the original series and this new film series are completely 2 different universes. So if you were satisfied or enjoyed the first series, which is R1 and R2, then there's no need to watch this, as it's a complete alternative timeline and all events in it have nothing to do with the events of R1 and R2. What if I want to watch Lelouch of the Resurrection? Do I need to watch these new films, or can I just go right to it after R2? You can watch the new film after R2 without the recap films, but just remember the original series and these new films are from 2 different universes and timelines. If you're watching the new film right after R2, there are going to be some things that might confuse you, and that's the reason. Lelouch of the Resurrection is not a sequel to R2, but rather the new recap films, and specifically Glorification, which is the 3rd film of the new recap films. I think at a bare minimum, you should either read up the differences or watch the new scenes from the 3 recap films before watching Lelouch of the Resurrection. Doing this will help you understand all the major changes in this universe. I went from R2 to Lelouch of the Resurrection and regret not looking into the recap films before doing so. This is why I think you should read up on the recap films before watching Lelouch of the Resurrection, if you plan on watching it after R2. Now, speaking objectively, there is only one change you need to know before watching Lelouch of the Resurrection if you want to go straight to it from R2. Even though the new anime will not require any prior knowledge of Code Geass, that anime is Zia of the Recapture, I still think you should watch the films and Lelouch of the Resurrection before watching the series. I kind of see it in a similar way to Mass Effect 3, which was made for people to jump into who had not played the previous 2. Although it was kind of strange why you'd want to start a trilogy with the 3rd entry in that same trilogy of a game franchise without playing the first 2, but that's a whole nother topic for another time. The point here is, if you had played the first 2 games, the 3rd game was a much better experience. And I think for Code Geass, Zia the Recapture, the same is going to be true. The next question is, where can you watch these films? No site is streaming them. You either have to purchase them on DVD and or Blu-ray, or buy them and rent them on digital sites that let you do that, like Vudu or Amazon. When Zia the Recapture comes out, it's most likely going to be on Funimation, since they now license Code Geass, with Bandai Entertainment going out of business. The watch order is fairly simple, but we'll go over it anyways. First watch Initiation, which is the first film, then the second film Transgression, and the third film Glorification. After that, watch Code Geass, Lelouch of the Resurrection. There are also 2 picture dramas which take place after Lelouch of the Resurrection. One of them is more fan service based, while the other one actually explains about events that happened after the film. So, at the bare minimum, I think you should watch at least one of the picture dramas after Lelouch of the Resurrection. That's the one that has plot relevant information. So we have now gone over the original timeline, the spin-off OVAs, and the alternative universe. So we must be done, right? Well, wrong. When if you wanted to watch everything Code Geass had to offer, meaning taking all these 3 things and combining them, how would you do it? Well, lucky for you, I'm going to tell you, and since you stayed long enough in the video, here is the ultimate watch order. First, you start with R1. Then you watch and listen to all the picture dramas / audio dramas associated with each episode, followed by the standalone picture dramas. After that, you can either watch the picture drama for O1 of Oz the Reflection, or you can read the manga for O1. Then you dive into the EU of Akito the Exiled, and don't forget those picture dramas if you can find them. Then we return to Lelouch of the Rebellion and watch all of R2, then the picture dramas, and then the audio dramas, and then finally the the special standalone picture dramas, and OVA like Nunnally and Wonderland. After that, you have two options at this point. You can either watch the recap films for R1 and R2, or you can skip them and head right over to the alternative universe and start watching those recap films. And the reason why I say that is because those recap films, when they're following the same story as the original series, show more footage than the other recap films, the ones from '08 and '09. If you choose to go that route and skip the old recap films, at least try to find the ending for the second one, as it has actual plot relevant information and it's not just a simple recap of the original series. Now, if we go to the alternative universe, the order is as follows: initiation, transgression, and finally the glorification. Then watch Code Geass, Lelouch of the Resurrection, and its picture dramas. When Zia the Recapture comes out, this is where it will go in the watch order. So there you have it, the complete watch order and anime description of everything in the Code Geass universe. We have gone through each show, where to watch it, what's the watch order, and of course, if you need to watch it. I hope you liked the video. Please share this with other people who are struggling with this question and need guidance on the Code Geass universe. I wrote an article months ago and decided to do a video format to try explain the same thing in two different approaches. The logic being that if you experience it in two different ways, it should solidify it in your mind. However, if there are still questions, mistakes, enhancements about this topic, please let me know in the comment section below. Remember, this guide is for you guys, so if you are still confused about stuff, it's my job to help clarify it for you. If you want more Code Geass content, but cannot wait for more videos, then please check out my blog where I upload a new article of Code Geass and other anime topics once a week. I also just finished the update to my anime streaming guide, and I will link both of these things in the description below. But now I want to hear from you. Which OVA, audio drama, picture drama, film, etc. from the Code Geass universe are you most excited to get into? Comment below and let me know. Thanks for watching and have a great day.